a kingdom that abandoned its elders until one son changed everything. Imagine a country where growing old was a death sentence. When you couldn't work anymore, your own family had to abandon you. This may sound like a myth or a dark fairy tale, but this story carries one of the most powerful lessons about life, wisdom, and humanity. It's a story of a king, a strange law, and one son who refused to abandon his father. Listen till the end, because the message of this story might change how you see your elders forever. In a certain country, there was a cruel rule. When people became old and could no longer work, their families were ordered to take them to the mountains and leave them there. The king believed that if the elderly were removed, life would be easier for everyone. No extra mouths to feed, no burden, no responsibility. Cold, heartless, but it was the law. In that country lived a father and son. They loved each other deeply. As time passed, the father grew old, weak, unable to work. The son knew what the law demanded. One day, with tears in his eyes, he lifted his father onto his back and began the long walk up the mountain. Every step felt heavier than the last. At the top, the son broke down. He couldn't do it. He couldn't leave the man who had raised him. So he brought his father back home and hid him behind the house. Every day, the son secretly brought him food. Love had defeated fear. One day, the king announced a challenge. Whoever can make a rope from ashes will receive a great reward. People were shocked. A rope from ashes? Impossible. The son told his father. The old man smiled and said, "Take a rope, coil it tightly in a pot, then burn it." The son followed the advice. The rope burned away, but the ash remained, perfectly shaped like a rope. The king was amazed. The son won. A month later, the king announced another test. He held up a wooden stick and said, "Find its top and its bottom." Both ends looked the same. No one knew the answer. Again, the son asked his father, "Put it in water." The father said, "The heavier end will sink. That is the bottom." The son did exactly that. He won again. Then came the hardest challenge. Make a drum that makes sound without being struck. The son returned to his father once more. Put a beehive inside the drum. The father said, when the king shook the drum, the bees buzzed loudly. Sound without striking. The king was stunned. The king asked the son, "How do you solve riddles that no one else can?" The son bowed and said, "Your Majesty, I have no wisdom of my own. All these answers came from my elderly father." The king fell silent, and then he understood. Strength fades, youth fades, but experience? Experience is priceless. That very day, the king changed the law. He declared, "From now on, no elderly person will ever be abandoned." Families were reunited. Homes were filled again with wisdom, stories, and guidance. And the kingdom became stronger, not by removing the old, but by honoring them. This story reminds us of one truth. Our elders are not a burden. They are a blessing. Taking care of them is not just a duty. It is a privilege. If this story touched your heart, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what it truly means to be human. Because a society that honors its elders never loses its way.